This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is F.D. Recovery, and my name is Frank, your host. And thank you guys for tuning in. This is the weekly intention portion of our podcast. So, let me turn down this microphone so I'm not blaring in my own ears. All right, so last week was grief was a topic, and so this week will be respect. But before we dive into respect, what we're going to do is we're going to do a recap of grief. So grief is a tricky one, right? Because, although I was attempting to process grief this week, it was a tricky one, right? It didn't pop too much up into my daily life because, besides the whole dealing with my daughter and the passing of her father, it didn't really pop up any other way. So I do know that grief holds us back from a lot of stuff, and I did share on it quite a bit and talk about it in meetings. So it definitely was alive in my recovery, and I didn't spend too many moments on grief, but sometimes it's living amends, I feel, is some of the best healing for some of that grief that we're dealing with. And sometimes it's just real simple, and we don't have to go too far into grief. We can just kind of be aware of it, and just get to a point to where we start to heal, and things are a little less, how do you say, in your face, right? Sometimes it just goes onto the back burner, and although you work on it, it's not on the forefront of your mind like it once was when it was actively happening. This week was pretty easy when it came to grief. I don't have too many negative things in my life from day to day, so I don't have to experience too much grief in my life, and which is a good thing, right? I definitely got it far from figured out, but you can get to a point in your recovery where everything is in emergency mode, and that's a good place to be, because aside from trauma and different things like that, you can kind of let go of things pretty easy when you learn this whole grieving process is just and this whole trauma process and healing process is about just taking step by step and day by day. That whole one day at a time thing is, one of the most important things is getting down to the simplicity of just understanding these feelings will pass, this moment will pass, nothing lasts forever, and it's like it's back. Basically, this too shall pass, right? Just trying to simplify it, and I think that's what helps me with grief. I don't have too much of it. I haven't had too much loss in my life, although I have had it. I definitely haven't. I do believe that grief, it does have an expiration date, at least in different waves, right? What kind of was in your face and on the forefront of your mind, you can learn to kind of live with, and it'll get less, especially if you start doing that inner work and really hit therapy and do some of these dig into these steps, right? Most of the people that get caught into this whole grief cycle and can't really get out of it is because they're not meeting the grief and how much of a struggle it is with the right amount of work or the right amount of therapy. And and who is one to say what the right amount is, right? So that's why you kind of just have to do a crash course yourself and really maximize your gains as far as the therapy zone, right? Because you could always be doing a little bit more each day to where you can kind of find out that threshold, which some people have a hard time with. I know that for many years I would get my own way and um, and not really see the answers and see that the answers were kind of right in front of me. And if I could only just, um, I mean, most people were telling me what was going on and I just wouldn't listen, right? Or it would show up in my day to day life, the messaging from God within, the fine print where he would subtly tell me what's going on with me through people, places, and things. And it was up for me to kind of open my heart and my mind to receive that message. But, I had that blockage, right? And it's kind of hard to hear a message when you're not tuned in on the right channel, right? I can't watch the 5 o'clock news on channel 4 if I'm on channel 7. It just doesn't work like that. So you kind of tune that in and tune into the right station because I spent many years trying to do things a sideways step and never really wanted to put in the right amount of work, right? I was talking um, in a group. It's like we get pissed off about the work. We get pissed off of not getting the results from the work that we never put in. It's like imagine that, right? Getting upset about the results you don't have from the work that you never put in. It was kind of the curse of my life. I just wanted everything now and instant gratification, but I didn't want to do any of the work, right? And I think that's a big thing with this whole grief factor and just trauma in general. It's like, you want freedom, it's on the other side of that fear. And most of those things that I was afraid to face was embedded in all my fears, right? I was afraid to talk about my childhood, whether it be abuse or whether it be the feelings I was going through, whether the person I was mad at. And being in recovery kind of puts you in that mode, right? And also just not necessarily recovery as in drugs and alcohol, but also just healing, right? I'm on this healing aspect of a fitness journey slash discipline journey slash spiritual, and it's all intertwined. It's like I realize that this is one unit, right? It's not just my health. It's just my health. It's totally connected to the trifecta, if you want to call it, your spiritual, your God, and your physical, right? So understanding that you take care of all three of those things, your higher power connection and then your soul connection, which when you're connected with your higher power and you're letting in those messages and then you're working on your spiritual life and your mental health, right? Because I believe those are two intermingled, right? I believe that the mental part is deeply connected to your spiritual, right? So, and your body feels everything that's going on from your mental, right? And so if for the way I see it is, my mental is a direct result of my spiritual progress, right? So if I'm looking at things in negative light, it's because I'm for sure lacking and not connecting to my higher power, and there's definitely something wrong with that, right? And the one thing that I really strayed away from was accountability, right? And so just getting into this whole new way of life where, you can start being held accountable and holding other people accountable, and you can start this true path of where you can address this grief, address this trauma, and don't have to live in this constant rinse and repeat mode where you're just kind of creating the same scenarios with different faces, different places, and different people, right? And so, that's one thing that I always remembered is just through it all, it's just like, okay, here I am again doing the same crap, a different girl, different place, but the situation was the same. The feeling was the same. The anger was the same, right? And until I address some of those deep-seated issues like grief and trauma, right? And unraveling my personality which really wasn't mine, right? It was just this collective of all this BS that was integrated in my soul and in my mind, right? And the seeding process of other people trying to help me, right? And just understanding I got to let that information in and grow, right? And that whole grief factor, you can get to a place where you're no longer grieving, and or at least you've gotten to a point to where it's just not your identity anymore, right? Because a lot of people like to get caught up in that victimhood of choosing everything that has gone wrong, whether it's a loss of a person, a loss of a job, and what they're really struggling with is their identity, right? And they like to identify with whatever's going on with them because they don't realize, or at least are having trouble seeing that it doesn't define them, right? And it's easier said than done when you're on that other side of the hurt. It's it almost feels like someone's in the cheap seats trying to speak it, right? But it's imperative that we take a step back and realize that there is a way out, right? No matter how much our mind tries to box us in, there's for sure a way out. So let's look up a little bit. Let's dive into respect, right? Respect. All right, respect. Let's see. All right, let's see what that has to say. Respect. A feeling of deep admiration for someone or something. Let's see. The state of being admired or respected, due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others, a particular aspect, point, or detail, the finding. All right. Okay. Admiration for someone and something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. All right, so there's some all right, let's see, let's dig a little deeper, right?
Elicit.
Oh, yep. I was just making sure that word was right because I didn't want to be speaking some nonsense. All right, let's see. Respect is at its core meaning treating others with consideration, valuing their opinion and boundaries, and recognizing the intrinsic worth. It's about acknowledging their individuality and respecting them, even when you disagree with them. Respect also involves showing consideration for their feelings, even when you don't personally agree with them, right? And then it goes on to, acceptance and things like that. The reason why, respect, I wanted to bring it up because respect was never really a cornerstone for the way I did anything, right? And I think it's an important topic or spiritual principle to really bring up, because when you live kind of the life I used to live and getting from the place that we got from, it's like respect wasn't a real part of anything, right? I didn't respect you. I didn't respect me. I didn't respect the rules. I didn't care what you thought, what the other person was trying to bring to the table. I didn't care. I didn't respect it. And in fact, I hated it, right? So, um, that taken it a step further is completely despising, right? Um, you know, there's, there's the reason, and then also when you look up respect, it says, what's the opposite? Well, the first one's contempt, disrespect, despise. So these are important because so the things that I dealt with like contempt and hatred and disrespect, I didn't realize there was really an opposite side right there. And even if I did respect something and it was always rooted in something negative, right? I respected violence. I respected loyalty in all the wrong places, meaning like the drug game and just the whole prisons mentality and, can't snitch and all that stuff. And um, the reason why respect is such a big thing because my life was rooted in contempt, man. I assumed everything was full of shit and I hated the, especially, the one thing it says contempt prior to investigation in the back of the big book. That one that hit me hard. It's like we can't afford to close our mind to any and all spiritual concepts, right? And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that line in there is that contempt prior to investigation. There's just so many things. My heart was full of contempt, right? And the reality is, um, the feeling, the contempt, the feeling that a person or thing is beneath consideration, worthless, or deserving scorn. Everything was just, I wasn't willing to see that side of it, and it just wasn't worth it. And I thought I knew fucking everything, man. And the reason why respect today is just so important because I came from that lifestyle of just not giving a shit and really just disrespecting every chance that I got, right? And every chance that somebody gave to me, right? Whether you were a family member, or whether you were someone I was in a relationship with, my ex-wife, my girlfriends, that just friendships, I always seemed to take advantage of them, and I never really truly respected them. And in the amount of disrespect that occurred in my addiction, and also, I wasn't high the whole time, but a good majority of it was high, right? And um, the over and over again, just doing the same crap and continuous disrespect and my outright show of hatred towards most of the people in my life, right? And you know there I held a lot of hatred for my biological mother there for a long time, and because I felt abandoned, right? I didn't really I mean, I had visits here and there when we were kids, but I didn't really get to know her until I was about 16. And when I did get to know her, all I seen was a junkie on the couch, right? And she's since clean up of some of those prescription drugs, but that really affected me, right? I'm like, okay, well, I moved up to my mom's around 16, and then there she was, doped out on the couch, and it was a hard time for her. But in that time, I didn't have no care. I'm like, fuck you, you're my mom. What are you doing? And I didn't have really any true concept of what an addict was. I mean, I was definitely dabbling in drugs, but, I definitely wasn't even considered any kind of type of addiction or nothing. I was still just moving from, situation to situation, getting drunk, and, it wasn't even on the forefront of my mind. But when I looked at her, I'm like, ooh, that's a drug addict. What a piece of shit, right? She can't even take care of their kids, and then blah, blah, blah. And, that's just where I was at that age. And I had no foresight that I would be just as bad, if not 100% worse, right? And I don't mean to say it like a competition, but when it comes to dirtbaggery, I was always up with the best of them, and and I say that because when I fast forward to most of my addiction, it's just like, wow, who the hell was I thinking to passing that judgment on my mom and not understanding the pain that she was in, and some of the things she was in, and some of the um trauma that she never worked through. None of that was in the forefront of my mind, right? I didn't have enough respect in my heart to understand that I could even consider compassion, consider any of these things, right? It just full on went to despise and hatred and contempt, right? And through that, I disrespected her. I disrespected the woman that gave birth to me, right? And then in the back end, I hated my stepmom, right? She in my mind, she was the cause for a lot of the pain, and so no matter what situation I was going through, and don't get me wrong, there was plenty of abuse, and we've made amends since then on both ends with my biological mother and my stepmother. I consider them both my mom, and this till the day I die, that I will always think that way, and because they were both there for me. My mom later, and my real mom a little bit later in my life, and my stepmother mostly when I was young, right? But they were all life lessons that I had to go through, right? I just remember looking at my mom in disgust, my biological mother, and going, wow, that's a fucking true addict, what a piece of shit. And then fast forwarding, years later, and I was fucking just like her, right? And much, much worse, and got to the point where I was addicted to prescription pills just like her. I was addicted to meth. I don't know if she wasn't too much of a speeder, but she had her encounters with it, right? But I was just like her. And it brings me back to that, before the grace of God go I, because, when, you know, you're here and in these situations, yeah, you can sit there and pass judgment on somebody, but be careful, right? Because in the future you may be in the same spot, you may be homeless, you may be in the same trials and tribulations. It's just a yet, right? We all have a dark night, and we all have that searching of the soul to go through. And although I'm in recovery, I do know that I'm doing all this work because someday I'm going to get a phone call. Someday something's bad's going to happen, and I'm going to need strength to walk through it. I'm going to need support to walk through it. And that's one of those lessons in life. When you're young, you just don't have enough foresight and experience to kind of understand that, man, that could be you, right? You just look at a situation, for me, it was just so quick to judgment. And God has a way of humbling you and learning these life lessons. And like I said, man, I got pretty much owned by my higher power in that sense, right? There's been so many you know turnaround moments where I'm like, wow, how fucking dare I? Now I'm in that same situation, and I seen how easy it was to get there, right? Couple bad choices, a little bit of trauma, and a little bit of unaccountability, just not taking the right amount of action. And I found myself exactly where I was judging, right? And I was like, wow, and it's pretty fucking easily done. Don't get me wrong, I made a lot of dumb choices, and it was all collective. But you know just kind of getting back to that whole respect thing, is I never had enough respect for some of these people, and understanding that they were just on life's journey too, right? I was just so involved with my own hurt and my own pain that I refused to see somebody else was actually going through life and actually hurting as well. And and that was that's a turning point for me, is when I can start tapping into that compassion and understand that yeah, I go through shit, and I've been through shit, but everything that I've ever gone through has only made me stronger. And I'm living fucking proof, man. Every situation I step into and anything that comes, I'm well versed because some of the bullshit I've been through. So the thing that I used to, use as victimhood and all that stuff is actually my power, right? Turning pain into power and understanding that you can transmute that into something beautiful. And if you do it just right and you change that frequency within your soul on whatever outlook you're doing, right, you can arise out of that. It's like the phoenix out of the ashes, right? And the beautiful thing about this is, it's open to all of us, man. If we want to open our life to God and, understanding on a spiritual level like these kind of thoughts and experiences are open to you as well. It's not, nobody has a monopoly on this, especially in recovery or just spirituality, man. These things are open to you and I, right? And reason I wanted to bring up respect is because I've lived so much in the opposite my whole life, right? And I looked up respect, and the opposite of it and is contempt, disrespect, and the verb of it is despise. And I'm just like, wow, you know, just to put it that way, it's like, yeah, I can think of respect and all the cool things for money, power, respect, and all these cool ego bullshit. But when I look down to the nitty gritty and think about the opposite, about the negative things that I've been doing my whole life and going, wow, I lived so much life, of my life despising, disrespecting, and holding contempt in my heart, and getting on this other side of respect. It's just like, man, I don't have to live that way anymore. I don't have to disrespect people around me. Because you know why? You know why I don't have to disrespect people around me is because I'm okay within me. When I got to a point where I had to make you wrong and make me right in the situation, it's because I was feeling lost and alone inside, right? And I had some insecurities that I hadn't yet figured out. And by all means, we're all just kind of walking through this journey of life and trying, just figuring out the best way we can with the best information that we have at hand. So, when I get to this whole realm of respect thing, like today, I don't have to. And I also don't have to respect ridiculous things that are all egocentric, right? I used to respect the dumbest things. Oh, wow, that fancy car. Oh, man, I respect that guy because he got to hustle. And I used to respect all these things that were just all materialistic and superficial. Today I can respect other things about people. Like I can respect when I see a grown man open up and break down and tell some real shit about themselves and actually cry, right? I respect the fuck out of that. And if you're listening to this and you're a man or you're a female and you can't quite drive with that, I mean, I get it, right? I was all about, trying to be the coolest, toughest guy out there, and just being able to watch a kids movie with my daughter and actually kind of tear up nowadays, and just because I have that heart within myself to be able to see things differently and understand that life you can have these touching moments, and you don't have to judge whether things are right or wrong. You can just feel, right? And that's an important thing to kind of circle back to, is just like waking up to some of these concepts of spirituality, and waking up to those things I used to block out so many years from, right? Like those feelings within myself that I used to battle. I didn't ever like to use feeling emotions. I never liked crying when I naturally should have cried from pain and hurt, and when I was full of shame, right? There's times where I think back about situations and I can do that whole little shame, you know just repeat it in my brain where I'm there, right? And you know but today I have the tools to get out of that. I don't have to I don't have to live in that place anymore, right? I have a choice today, right? And I have a lot of strength today because of my higher power and in this recovery journey that I'm on, right? And I got support group in my life, my wife, my a lot of my coworkers, it's sometimes we can get short-sighted. I know I can, right? I can get in the zone and just start overworking and using out the side things to kind of make me feel good inside. And, you know, um, I just know today I need to slow down, take it one day at a time, right? And just really respect where I'm at, right? This whole respect game is beautiful because today I respect really, really good things, qualities in people's virtues, principles, right? And inside people, I respect that. Before it was like who had the biggest bag, who was the baddest motherfucker, who can beat up who was the hottest. It's like, fuck, man. Gotta have the hottest chick, gotta have this, that, and looking at life in all the wrong ways, and it's only because I really despise myself on a real molecular level, right? Where I just everything about me, I hated my genes, as far as my DNA. I hated that I was half Mexican, half white. I hated everything about myself at one point. It's just like I never accept myself, right? And I grew up in a Hispanic community, and I was always wider than everybody else. It just I was always going through a head trip where I didn't belong, right? So when it comes down to it, man, today I choose full acceptance and respect for where I'm at, man, because I actually love myself today, right? And if you hear that and you're still struggling with that word love and respect, I fucking get it, right? The wonderful thing that you need to know is that you're not alone, right? We don't have to walk through this alone. If you're struggling, get your ass to a fucking meeting, man. Get your ass around people that understand you and know what that lonely feeling is. I remember coming into NA, and I know you guys too do as well. If you ever experienced just fresh off a relapse and just destroyed your life and hitting a room and just being so nervous, right? So nervous. And man, how could these people even look at me? I'm disgusting. I remember just talking to myself like I was a total piece of shit, right? And being in those meetings and people would still accept me, right? And I just, if they only knew who I was, how much of a piece of shit I was. And I showed up every single day because I didn't want to go use. There was something that happened this last time around. And I just remember people loving me until I could love myself, right? And teaching me about these things: respect, accountability, God, teaching me, right? People taking me under their wing, and mentorships. And mentorship is the most important thing, man. And that's going to be another topic here in the future. But man, I can't stress enough on being around brothers and sisters that could actually walk you through some of life's trials and tribulations. I started getting high and drunk at the age of 13, and that's where my brain stopped. And when I reawakened at 28 years old, trying to get clean and sober for the second, third, fourth, fifth time. But I realized is my brain stopped at 13 years ago. And thank God that we can, you can gain some of that stuff back really quickly. But I had to start over in the biggest way. I had to start loving myself again and loving other people and getting along with people. It all got stunted at 13, right? And along with trauma can stump all that too. It wasn't just like I drank, but there was a lot of trauma too. So you have to unwind some of that, right? And getting down to that core essence of who you are on a biological level and on a spiritual level, and just understanding your body, mind, all these things, man. The exploration never stops, right? So just remember this, guys, man. You can't get mad about uh so it's all about work, right? That's one thing. It's just like don't get mad about the results you didn't get by the work you never put in, man. That hit me so hard when I've heard that. And it's just like, man, I can't walk around being an entitled prick. I have to put in my effort. People got to know I'm serious. I have to show up for myself and other people, right? And just the act of going through that all, and it shows that you respect yourself and what's going on. It shows that you love yourself, and you could respect your journey and everyone else's journey by showing up, right? That's a huge act of respect. It's just showing up even when you don't want to, man. Showing up at that meeting and sharing at that meeting. Understand that someone may need to hear that message that either you're going through, because I know people that have gone to meetings and go, man, I didn't want to come, but man, you said something. Come to me after the meeting and say, hey, man, you said something that kind of hit home, and I'm glad I came here. I appreciate your sharing, right? And before that, we can get in these headspaces. I got nothing to say. I'm a this, I'm a that. Or maybe we're on the other end, some of those people that like to talk and just, oh, everybody got to listen, right? But I've heard a lot of mixed reviews when it comes down to it, right? Some people come to me and say, man, you sounded angry, are you okay? And then I take offense to it immediately, but then I realize, man, fuck, man, they're just trying to show me some of the stuff that maybe I can't see, right? And I've learned to kind of take a step back and not take it so personally, because they're just really trying to help me, and in that I could respect, right? It's like, okay, I have to get out of my feelings and get out of those negative headspaces just to kind of see the light, right? And so this week I'm gonna really work on respect, right? And that whole concept of respecting others is and respecting yourself, a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something, right? And that's me, that's you, about their abilities, qualities, or achievements, right? Just getting to a place where you can just respect yourself and other people around you, see the good things inside them, see the special abilities and qualities, see their achievements, celebrate their achievements, right? And show them ultimate respect. Show the people in your life that you really respect them by showing them acts of kindness and showing them love, and just buying them flowers, just to see them smile, right? It's not all about monetary stuff. Make them something that costs $1, dude. Make them a little makeshift card, like whatever you got to do. I know that some of the most beautiful things I get are the Father Day gift by my daughter, and seeing a little drawing on a coffee cup that she made for me. Those things, I'll keep those until I die, right? So the most valuable things to me in my life are not even, you can't put a price on them, right? And that's the important thing. You don't have to have a lot of money to show you care, right? And I used to get caught up in that, like everything has to be measurable to some degree, or monetized or something, right? And today I get to live in that freedom to know that I'm not under that spell anymore, right? And so this week, follow along with us in this journey of recovery, right? With respect, man. So, show some respect to some of the people in your life and how much you care for them, right? Sometimes we can lose sight of that, and through that, we could almost be disrespectful. I know I can, right? And I could only speak for me, but if you guys can, resemble with some of the stuff I'm saying, or resonate, sorry, then join me in this whole respect thing, right? All right, well, that's this week's weekly intention. It is respect. All right. Again, FD Recovery. My name is Frank. Love you guys. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor. Get connected to local support groups. And for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.